Okay. I did. I personally did, yes. Um, so I'm gonna show you this. I think this should be screen recording now. Um, so I'll show you real quick how to get this open house set up, and then I'm going to then we can talk about the PLLC. So share screen. Make sure you can see this. Okay, now you can probably see it. You see the screen now? Okay, cool. All right, so once you're in the MLS, so it's just that login I just sent you. You can just use mine for now. So like my menu bar looks a little bit different because you can customize it, but how you'll find it in your own is going to be to hop in here into this menu button and then go to office listings. So like, and then if you just click these little stars, it'll star it and save it up in this top bar. But then for me, like this is normally what I do, and then I can show you another way where you can set like it basically just be setting up your like setting yourself up for a home search for opens that you want to sit open. But this is all of EXP's listings, so these should be like the first ones you try to hit, in my opinion, to sit open. It's really, really simple. I mean, like these agents, there's no reason to be shy about it either. These agents are really, for the most part, open-minded to letting other EXP agents set their stuff open. And you're definitely not the only one reaching out. But keep in mind too, like the agents, like I'm really specific on who I would let sit open houses in my listings because it's a representation of to their client, like what as like how they look at the end of the day. So my point is why I mentioned that is that's why it's really important to like make a good impression the very first time you talk to them. So I wouldn't ever start out like these conversations as like you like a text and be like, hey, I'm with EXP. This is Terrell. Your 81st place. Is anybody sitting this one open? Is anybody sitting this open this weekend? Because like when I get those texts, like unless the seller like really wants it to be sat open and no one on our team's sitting it, or I'm not sitting, I'm probably never going to respond to that, to be honest. Specifically, maybe the seller doesn't want it. But if someone calls me and they're like, hey, is this listing available to be sat? Like, I'm way much more likely to let them do it, or, I'm just gonna be way more open-minded to the idea because again, like I want somebody sitting my client's house open that's like professional and like, on their game and and really knows what they're doing. So like if you're like hiding behind the phone and just texting about it, you're probably gonna set the open house the same way. So I would probably just skip it. But so this is really, really simple once you're in here. So like what I did there, just to recap here, I sorted by price and I went to descending. Reason for that is like that way I'll just push all the rentals and stuff to the bottom. And then you see really quickly like the price drops down to be a little bit more realistic for you to sit some opens. But like, and ideally you sit them in like your area where you're trying to work. But right now the inventory is pretty low. So it's a little bit more tough to like be picky with open houses right now. I would just make it mandatory, like especially for newer agents, to sit at a bare minimum one a week. So I think definitely doing two a week would be worthwhile, or maybe even more. But so all I was doing is scrolling through here. I found this one on 81st place. Like to me, this catches my eyes, right? Because it's South Scottsdale. I know exactly where this is at. It's a couple turns off the main road, right? So, and these are all factors to like sit more successful open houses. It's not, again, you can't be like overly picky with it. But like for me, this is where I would like start calling. Like this would be probably the first one I'd call. And this is map's terrible right now. But anyway, I'm just looking at the location. And this is how you can kind of like map out how many signs you're going to need and whatnot too. So like if I was sitting this house open, for example, I would have 1, 2, 3, 4 signs out on Thomas on all the corners in Scotts or Hayden. And then I'd have 1, 2, 3, 4 signs out here. So I'd bring a total of 9 signs, and then one more outside of the front house, right outside of the house. So yeah, so I'd, on a house like this, that's how many signs I'd bring. And again, like the reason I'm mentioning is that is like, and I'm just trying to tell you how to pick like the right open house really. But any open house is better than no open house in my mind. But like if you were looking like, like way out here in Goodyear, like in the middle of the week, in like a little gated community or something, like probably not the best idea. Again, it's better than no open house in my opinion. But like you want to like ideally pick them in neighborhoods you want to work, so you like know the area, you know what you're talking about. And if you don't know the area, just do your homework before. Like there's nothing wrong. Like I've definitely sat open houses in like areas downtown, like little like cliquey neighborhoods like Willow or Encanto, or like some neighborhoods I didn't know, and I learned a ton by sitting them open. So don't like avoid areas you don't know. But like just pick price point in areas you want to work, right? So this one, you go in here, all the listing agents info's right down here, and sometimes there'll be a co-lister and a listing agent. And then like that's pretty simple. Like before you even call, just make sure you like read all these notes and stuff. They're not always like done like this. Like so it says occupied, no showings until November 29th. So like you wouldn't want to have called this guy before the 29th to ask if you consider an open house, because there's tenants in the house, right? Like so just pay attention to that type of stuff so you don't like sound like an idiot on the phone, because like people call me all the time. It was particularly when I'm carrying listings and I say no showings until next Friday, December 9th or whatever it is, and they'll call me and they'll ask if they can show it right now, and it's like, did you read the MLS? It's just like not a good way to like start. So like in this one, like here's another good point to bring up on this one. Right here it says status update, multiple offers received. So even though it's been able to show it for a couple of days already. So particularly like this one stuck out to me because it's a solid location, solid price. So this would have been like a really, really solid open house to sit on November 29th, right? Because your pitch could have kind of been to this listing agent, Scott. Could have said, hey Scott, like, my name's Terrell, I'm with eXp Realty. Just wanted to reach out. I see you don't have any showings allowed till the 29th. I'm really looking for an open house in that South Scottsdale area. I would love it if I could sit that open, and then I could kind of be your watchdog for the property that way, because you probably already have 15 showings on it. So I'm happy to sit it open and like babysit the agents as they come through and make sure it's all locked up at the end of the day. Also, I'll throw my open house signs out there, and I'll be, able to answer any questions that the neighbors might have. And they, obviously the other agents 9 times out of 10 understands like the goal of the open house. You don't need to like go too deep there. But like some people will be like, oh, I'm trying to sit open houses, but they have multiple offers, or, they said no because they have too many showings that day. And it's like, the reality is I would rather have an agent sit an open house for me on a day where there's 15 showings, because I want to make sure someone's like ultimately responsible for the home that day, right? So I'd rather have like, one of our agents like eyeballs on these other agents as they're coming through. Right. So like if you get that little objection, like, and even if there's multiple offers received, I would still try to sit an open house, because the reality is like your goal of sitting the open house is to sit there and meet people. It's 9 times out of 10 they're not interested in that particular property. Maybe not 9 times out of 10. A lot of the time they come through Zillow. They like looked at the property and they are interested, so they want to come and see it. But actually probably about half the time I would say people are coming through just off the street that know nothing about it, but they're looking to have a conversation at some level. So really, really good ones, particularly if you can find one in like a good area, a good part of town, good time of the week and everything, then great. You got all your boxes checked. But, if not, there's nothing wrong with sitting in a house that's been on the market for a little while, or, in like a different part of town or whatever. But I would just say, like, again, at a bare minimum, try to do it once a week. If your schedule allows it, I'd try to sit it this time of the year, Saturdays from 1 to 4. because you do football. Like now we've got football and basketball and all sorts of stuff and holidays. People normally like kind of rushing around on Sundays or doing church and family stuff. So it's like I find Saturday typically to be the best day to sit it. So and you could quickly see all these like pending ones. It's better to not sit a pending one, but if you're like struggling and you find one that is pending, like you can sit it, if the agent allows it. And then you just say to the buyer that comes through, like, only if they ask, or I don't know, I guess it depends on like however you want to like run the conversation. But when buyers come through, you could be like, yeah, this one's, under contract currently. But the buyers, anything could happen. So we're looking for backup offers too. And then you could even just to like that buyer that's in the house, just kind of like explain like, yeah, I'm just in here to meet people like you, see how I can help you out. Right. And that could be your pitch, like to get the door open. Right. And then we can dive more in depth to at another point with like coaching on like the overall open house. So I just like want to keep this video just like finding the open house. Right. But go ahead. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So really good question. Oh, I can dive pretty deep into that if you wanted. But really and I want to create like a checklist for our agents for all this stuff because it's really a lot, right? Because like my mindset on it is like, and with my experience personally, to be honest with you, I sat open houses for about 2 years, didn't get a single result. I didn't get any clients from it. I was just sitting them because at the time that's what I was told to do. I sit them and I'd stumble my way into a closing. Eventually I did stumble my way into a closing, but like now my mindset is like if you're gonna take 3 to 10 hours out of your weekend or whatever, or maybe 20 hours plus, depends on how many you want to sit. Like sit it with intention, right? Like make it purposeful, right? Because if you bring 5 signs with you and just throw them up on a Thursday, Friday afternoon just to sit there for 2 hours, like sure, you're kind of doing the right thing, but the reality is like we want to make sure that like we're pushing traffic through these things. The goal is to get as many bodies as possible through there within reason. Because I've definitely done open houses where I've gotten like way too many people, and it's like you want to find like this happy medium. So in preparation, like, and again, I can kind of create this checklist, but you're more than welcome to obviously write it down. But like number one thing I would do, just find a decent one, like decent area somewhere like you want to sell. Like you don't want to be sitting in open house. It's like ugly or like, it's going to be hard for you to sell, because that's how like the potential client's going to like see how you are. Right. So like if you're not pushing the house or if you're not, like really, in line with that property and pricing and everything, it's going to shine right through. Cause some of the times it's someone that's maybe looking to sell their house too. Like, yeah, they're looking to buy. They're just shopping around right now, but they probably need to sell their house first before they buy something. Particularly in these price points, right? Like 600 and above. Most of the time, this isn't a first-time home buyer, right? So you want to you're almost being interviewed without even knowing it at that point when you're like meeting them, shaking their hands and everything like that. So that's number one. I'd say like pick an appropriate property. You don't want to pick something that you think's ugly. Or it's just going to lead to like bad conversations with potential clients and everything, or in a part of town that you know nothing about. So that would be number one. Number two would be like an idea that I really like is to, and again, like work it with intention, right? So like number two, I would say, don't be afraid to spend some money on the open house. Like a really good one I like is doing like mimosas and donuts. I think that's a really popular one. And nothing like crazy. Like you could buy, 2 $7 bottles of champagne and, a gallon of orange juice for $20. And get like some donut holes from Dunkin' Donuts for, $5. So nothing like wild. And I know it's like COVID and whatnot, but like just to have it. Also another reason for that is like you can use that as a marketing approach. So something I've done in the past, which we can get you set up. We met with Crystal last week, but Crystal can help you do like print. So you could print out invites to the neighbors And certainly I wouldn't necessarily say do this with every single open house, but if you get a really good one, the right time of the year, like right, everything, but like you can definitely do this for everyone too. It's up to you. But I would say like you could get with Crystal, like, we could have Chelsea make a little flyer, or someone on Crystal's team can do it too, or you could be like mimosas and donuts, and then that's like make it into a little invite, and then you could drop that off at the neighbors' houses to invite them to the open house. And like that could obviously get really expensive really quickly too, but why I would say to do it through Crystal is because she can set it up too with you, to get you on that farm tool we talked about, to where that'll show you just the gold houses. So which the gold houses are people that have, they have equity, they've been in their home for the average number of stay years in that neighborhood, and then they've also potentially had a death, marriage, divorce, baby, anything like that just happen, which is like another qualifying factor to why typically people make a move. So that way you don't have to blast out 500 invitations to people that wouldn't necessarily care, but this way it's going to look like you are door knocking every house in the neighborhood and you are inviting people, and the pitch could be whatever you want. It could be like, hey, yeah, we've had this listing, and you can say we, like our brokerage is definitely a we statement. We've had this listing, it's been on the market for a couple of weeks. We haven't seen the offer yet, so I'm just walking around. I'm doing an open house this Saturday. I wanted to introduce you guys. I'm doing it private for the neighbors only from 12 to 2. And, you can just do whatever, right? Like you say whatever you want on that front. So, we're doing mimosas and donuts. I'd love to, have you guys pop by and let me know what you think, right? And like this could be the house you're sitting, right? And give me some feedback. So that would be like another great strategy and preparation to like get more bodies through the open house, right? And then that's a very tactical approach in my opinion, because, you're not door knocking the whole neighborhood. You absolutely can if you want to. But at a bare minimum, there's probably going to be 10 gold houses in the neighborhood right now. With people that have qualifying events going on, they have equity, like, the whole nine, and they're going to see you as a hustler because you're, out there inviting people, because that's what they're going to want to see if they listed their house with you and it wasn't selling, right? They're going to be like, okay, well now he's, got our attention for sure. And then that's where they could open up the conversation totally in that realm, once they come out and they meet you at the property, right? And I would say personally, I think, if you were to drop off 10 to 20 of those invites, and that could be, I think all in on that, you should never spend on these smaller numbers. I don't think you would ever spend more than like $50 to do that. And I think that would be expensive at $50. Yeah, we'll pay for, and it depends on what Crystal's like budget and everything is at the time, and depends like what you want. Like if you want like something glossy and like thick and nice and like foldable that's gonna like look really good, obviously the print cost is gonna be a little bit more expensive, but they're partnered with a great like real estate printing company, so the cost is really affordable. It's gonna be like much cheaper than if you like went to Kinko's and like asked them to print out 50 invitations. So should be really, really affordable if you're doing that stuff. And eventually, as you continue to like have a working relationship with a title company, just as a real estate agent in general, they're going to be a lot more inclined to like give you freebie type stuff. So yeah, that would be like a number 2, 3, 4 type of approach, and as far as like preparation would go. And then too, like a lot of agents don't want to sit open houses because they hate putting their signs out. So there's a lot of strategies with this. Like again, that's why I would prefer to work neighborhoods that are like closer to me. That doesn't always happen that way, especially in the summertime. Like, because the last thing you want to do is like be in a suit or like be running around on blacktop streets at 110 degrees outside, and like you get to your open house like right when it opens at 1 o'clock. And then you're sweating your ass off and you look a mess. It's just like, at that rate and that time of the year, I'd just pay somebody to set up my open house signs, because that would be like a subconscious thought in my head, like, oh, I don't want to sit in open house this weekend, like it's too hot. I don't want to set up my signs. I don't want to be all sweaty, flustered. So there's companies that'll set up the signs for us. That's really not a problem, and it's really affordable. Alternatively, if you didn't want to pay somebody to do it, go set them up, bring a change of clothes, go an hour and a half early, go set them up in gym clothes, and then get to the house, early enough, and then you're able to like cool down, chill out, like turn on the AC before you set up your signs type of thing, change into your fresh clothes there, like, because sometimes people show up like right when I'm setting up my signs. Like sometimes the people like follow me off the street. So that's why you just want to be like, prepared for that type of stuff too. Or, if it's summer and it's in your neighborhood or whatever, it's nearby, you could just, go back home and hang out, just set up your signs like super early, put a note on the front door, say house opens at 2, or house opens at 1, and sure, it could be a little misleading or whatever. But that's just, if it's summertime and that's what you want to do, then go for it. So, but yeah, and then also like another big thing in preparation, particularly when you're sitting other people's listings, you want to make sure that they have added their open house, and that's something like really diligently you need to follow up on with the agents, because you want to make sure they added the open house into the MLS. So, so this house has been sat open, like this is a little bit different, but see how they've added in here. So like on October 2nd, they had the open house this weekend, from 10 to 1, right? So you can see kind of all the open house history and stuff in here too. But the reason why adding this into the MLS is so important for you as the agent sitting it open is because this is what, this is where all the other websites like Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin will pull their data from. So when you put that in here, it'll blast it out to all the other sites. Yeah, and that's why you need to like diligently follow up on it, because I'd say I would say at least 30-40% of the people that come through aren't coming through because of your signs. They're coming through because of they saw it on Zillow, right? And they're like shopping open houses this weekend. So, yeah, and you can't put it in, the agent has to do it. And then I'm like on them about doing that. Yep. Yeah, because a lot of times we'll be like, yeah, sure, set it open, and then do nothing, right? So that's where I'm like really on it. And if it was open, it would say it. It would say it in the listing. Like it would show under here, it'd say open house, tomorrow, right? And that's where all that data comes from. So in preparation, I'd make sure that they're adding that if it's not your listing. If it's your listing, obviously, go for it. What was that? Yeah, so make sure you're all set up with your lockbox. Like I use the app on the phone. So you need to go. So that's gonna be once you have your your own MLS access. You'll go through Armlist to get your Supra lockbox keys. So once you're all signed up with your association realtors and your MLS, then you'll, I think they can do it by phone right now, but you could, it's really easy. Once you're all set up, you just open this little app, and then you just basically like kind of follow the prompts through on here. You obtain key, you type in your little passcode, and then you scan it, on the box, and it opens the box. So, and where you see that type of stuff is, so right in here, it says the showing instructions. Yes, permissions required to show. It says contact via showing time, or text, phone call, or email. This is where it says armless lockbox right here. It's armless. It says yes. So, and it says it has an alarm activated. So you want to reach out to this guy and so sometimes this would say armless lockbox no. That would mean there is a mechanical lockbox, right? So then this info should be filled out like mech box code. That's where the key box code would show you if it was like just a regular contractor lockbox. But yeah, and then but yeah, you're gonna need your MLS to get access to these homes. So for you, it may be best in January, but you could. And sometimes like I know Todd on our team, he's got a key that's not registered to his phone. So I know he's let some of the other agents borrow it for showings. So yeah, so I mean, you could just hit him up and ask him to borrow it. He'll just let you know if it's possible or not, because he's an appraiser too. So he might need it at that day and time, so, but then that way you could at least get the key out if you sit one this month. But yeah, he'll be able to let you borrow it, I'd imagine, but everybody else I think has their keys on their phone, so you can't really borrow our phone. And the phone needs to have service on it, otherwise it would, we'd have an extra phone that you could just use. But yeah, and then other than that, as far as preparation goes, I'd say mainly I think doing the invites is above and beyond, but doing the yeah, absolutely, social media. I find it it's kind of just like a filler type of content, in my opinion. I'd say you rarely would get somebody to show up to your open house from your own social media, unless you wanted to again do it another approach, but run ads for your open house that weekend for potential buyers, and run your own Facebook campaign for that. But I wouldn't. I've never done that. It could be a good approach. I'm sure you're not the only one that would be doing it. But I'd definitely say door knocking and dropping off the invitations is going to have you a better conversion. I think it's just general. It would be general marketing if you were to blast it out. I doubt, someone would come to your open house if they saw a Facebook ad about it. But, I'd say you're much more likely to get somebody to show up if you knock on their door and give them an invitation and tell them, you're going to give them mimosas and donuts on Saturday morning for 15 minutes at a time, and they can come take a look at the house and, and chit-chat about real estate. I say if you get one or two people of those Gold Farm people to show up to your open house a week, you could really crush those numbers. If that was the case, if there was 10, and you're getting at least one of them to show up to your open house, and you stack these numbers, because then that's 4 people a month at a minimum, right, if you hit that goal. And these are 4 people that we know at some extent are probably motivated to sell, right? They're having these qualifying events, right? And that's on top of your normal traffic that's going to come through the open house anyway. So I think that could be a really, really powerful addition. And then do that in the right way too. I wouldn't go do all this in preparation to sit at open house on a Wednesday from 3 to 5 and tell them there's mimosas and donuts at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday, and knock on their door and tell them that they're probably at work, so it's and then also in addition to all this, I would always be setting up your open houses 1 week in advance. So I definitely wouldn't be calling somebody today to sit it on Saturday. I think that looks bad. I think from the agent's perspective, there's probably already somebody sitting it this Saturday. And not that you can't do that, but as far as preparation goes, I would be looking on Monday or I'd be looking right now for a house next weekend. So that way you're on top of it. And then that way every week, you know what your schedule looks like in the beginning of the week. So Friday and Saturday, I'm going to be sitting this open house from these days and these times. And then that also, the reason for that is if you do choose to door knock that neighborhood and print flyers and do all that, then you're setting yourself up for a successful open house. Rather than, setting it up last minute, even today I would say is last minute for this weekend, and then you just show up with some MLS printouts, nothing else, a little sign-in sheet and then 5 signs. It's just what value is that? And that at that point, I think it's a total waste of time to sit at sure you could get lucky, find somebody, but if you have professional looking printouts, marketing, everything like that all prepared and ready to go, then, you know, the people are going to see that, like see you as a professional, you know, have something there for them at the bare minimum, have water bottles for people, just something that you can offer them, just have them like start saying yes, or like, you know, feel like they're a guest. This is their guests and their potential clients. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I'd definitely say that's a good time to do it. Um, or like the weekend before, right? So like on Sunday, like if it's Sunday, you know, then go door knock on Sunday. Like you obviously want to door knock when people are home, right? You don't want to be door knocking on Wednesday afternoon when they're probably at work. Um, so yeah, or I'd do it like that right that day before the Friday. So it's like fresh in their head, right? You're gonna give them an invite. Hey, stop by tomorrow morning for you know, a mimosa and a donut, right? To come hang out, and you know, give me some feedback on this property we're trying to sell. And remember, like we're going above and beyond. Like they're saying to do that in that mastermind group. They didn't talk about any live farm or gold houses or any of that. Like that's an extra advantage that we have. We have access to this tool that'll allow us, you know, the advantage there. Because like, you know, otherwise you're going to be door knocking 50 to 100 houses. It's going to be a whole day. Like you're going to door knock people that are tenants. You're going to door knock people like Airbnb houses, right? Like there's a lot of houses that are just honestly a total waste of time to knock on the door. So that's why the like walking farm app's so important, because it'll tell you exactly which doors to knock. And then with door knocking, I'm always like, A, like be really careful. B, I always like, you don't want to make it look like you're just knocking one door, right? Just because we know it's a gold house. We want to, so like on that aspect, I find the gold house, I'll knock the door across the street to the left and to the right of them. Because people will see like coming, right? If you like pull up just in front of their house, get out of the car, go up, knock on their door, they're like, what the hell? You know, like what's going on? But if they like see somebody like coming, and a lot of times like me personally, like I get dinged on this Ring app all the time, next door, like door knockers coming, like they're selling solar, or they're like, you know, politicians, whatever, they're trying to get you to sign this. Like people notify their neighbors about that stuff. So like, you know, you also like, that's a good thing. Like I'd say it's a good thing. Like if someone's notifying somebody about you door knocking, it's like, you know, like just be ready, right? Or it gives them a great reason to ignore you, or it gives them a great reason to not be alarmed when you come and knock on the door. Like these days it's like, who the hell's at my door? You know, it's like, it derails people, right? And they're like, oh, you know, you never know when you're going to catch them. The baby could be sleeping, or like, you know, their dog should be jumping all over the door. It's just, you could totally derail them, you know. So, but too, like now I'd say with door knocking, Ring doorbell, everybody has one just about, I'd say. So if they don't answer the ring, just make sure like when it lights up, you can see like the little red lights inside of it light up, and record a video. It's like a video voicemail. So you'd be like, hey, my name's Terrell, like same thing you'd do if they answered the door, because I watch that every single time someone rings my doorbell. I watch the video every single time. Yeah, because once you ring the doorbell, it starts recording you. If they don't answer, or they can answer and it could be just like a phone call, right? Like like if someone rings my doorbell and I'm not expecting anybody and they're not delivering food or an Amazon package, I'll pick it up and be like, hey, what's up? You know, like what's the deal? And they'll be like, oh yeah, we're selling solar, you know, or whatever. Like or you know, we're with this company, we're trying to, you know, whatever. But I'm like, yeah, no thanks, right? But you know, but now they had like a phone call and they had like a conversation at least, rather than you know, just nothing, or just like dropping a piece of paper off that I'm just going to throw away, right? And that's why you want your stuff, like back to the marketing aspect, like if you're dropping the stuff off, because yeah, absolutely leave your invite. I always bring like some blue painter's tape with me, and then tape it to like the garage door. I would say is better than taping it to the front door, because they're going to have to grab it off their garage door, and people typically with a garage come home, press the button, you know, and then they'll get out and grab it. So if you have something that like looks really nice on like thick paper, it's glossy, they can grab it, they can touch it, you can feel it, they'll be like, oh, this is nice. Like Typically, people don't go and throw that away right away. So they're actually probably going to take a look at it at least. Be like, oh, cool. And then like if they also are like, oh, there's a person at my door at 4 o'clock before I was home, they're going to probably go back and watch that video and kind of like reference these things. And like now you have like actually a pretty reasonable approach to them, just by like knocking a door that no one answered. Right. So like, that's definitely another way to get people to show up. And some people would like respect that, because some people do. Maybe they are just thinking about it, or maybe you caught them right at the right time. They're like, we were talking about this last night, like, and that's like the whole name of the game. And that's why it's just a numbers game. Like, got to just find the right people. But this tool will help you find, help you refine that number, so you don't have to go and look at, door knock 200 houses every week. Right, just to get a couple people to show up. We'd rather have the people there that are serious. So those are just a few things I would do. I was like, I would always like, just understand too, like the goal of the open house is to follow up with people afterwards. So something like really, really powerful. And I know you were in the mastermind on Monday, but just to kind of like retouch on it. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so you got that. So do that. Like, do it exactly as they said, right? So pre-registered for the open house. Watch the front door. Don't be chilling on the living room couch, like scrolling Instagram. Like, watch the front door. Like, be vigilant. Like, I keep the door locked. So if there's not like anywhere to sit where you can like actively watch out the front, I keep the door locked. So that way they have to ring the doorbell or knock. And then I'll just go to the door, and like there was a crazy thing, because like I just went to a new build site, and the new build site doesn't let anybody in unless you have an appointment. Same thing, like that's an open house, right? Like, so and that's just it. And like that's the world we live in right now. It's like very like COVID, so so people will be like, oh, I'll be like, oh, sorry, like you didn't pre-register, and again, you're not, obviously you're not turning them away. Right? And then you just do the script, right? He's like, look behind you and be like, oh, but I don't have anybody right now. Like, let me just take care of this right now. Like, and just be like, what's your name? Right? Move on. Like 602 or 480, right? And then Gmail or Yahoo, right? And like, get that done. And then they're going to be like, oh, that's different, because you totally caught them off guard. No one else is doing that, right? But make sure you do that, because I can't tell you the number of times where I've let people through the open house, had a great conversation with them, and like for whatever reason, maybe because we were having such a good conversation that I just like forgot to like pause and be like, hey, sign in. But then they'll leave and I'll be like, oh my God, I forgot to get them to sign in. And it's so worthless. Like, yeah, they have my info, but they're never going to call me. Like maybe if I get really, really lucky, but that's like, it needs to be the other way. Like, you need to be reaching out to them to check back to see if they want help. And then too, like I would also, every single time after somebody leaves and you have their information, send them a text, like whether they said they had an agent or not. Don't ever ask that question anyway. And then I'll send them a text right away and say, hey, thanks so much. And then send them a video. Send them a video, because they're going to open the video like, they're probably driving, right, when you send them a text. So they're going to look at it, or they're going to look at it later and not respond, or be like, yeah, thanks. Right, but if you send them a video, it tees you up to like send them another video later. So you can be like, hey, thanks so much, for stopping by the open house. It was so great to meet you guys, and like use their names. And then like you can then say like, I'm gonna check back with you in another couple of weeks, or like whatever the conversation was. Like, I'm gonna get you set up on the listing search right now, or I'm gonna get you the off-market properties we discussed. I'm going to start doing X, Y, or Z for them. And then that way, when you like, too, keep in mind, like as they're talking to you in the open house, like make note, everything they say. And even if it's like a mental note, but make sure you write it down when they leave. Because that way, when you like follow back up with them, like you can send them another video. Maybe they're like, yeah, we're just kind of casually shopping right now, but our daughter graduates in May. So we're probably going to do something next summer, but we just wanted to poke through because we live right up the street or whatever. Write that down, right? That way, when February, March rolls around, when they should probably be getting like pre-qualified to buy something else, you can follow back up and be like, hey, just wanted to touch back. Like, we met at my open house. And this is all by video, not by like, because like, think about it, right? Like, that's the world we live in right now. Like, I can't tell you how many texts I get a day from just Joe Blow trying to sell me something or sign me up for this or click this link for that. You don't want to get like caught in that. Like, texting's becoming like emails. So like, spam's coming through text now, but like, if someone's going to send me a video, or even if you're like scared of video, send an audio message. If you have iPhone, like everybody just about has an iPhone. So send like an audio message, and then they're probably going to keep that audio message, or they're going to like listen to it and like hear you out, right? Like, oh, just checking back to see if Susie graduated. Not if she graduated, but just want to say congratulations. Like, just checking back with you. Like, wanted to get the ball rolling, get you start pre-qualified with the lender. The pre-qual is going to be good for 90 days, so this will be a really good time to start that. And then like follow up with some value, and they'll remember you, and you want to be friends with them. And then that way they're going to be way more likely to use you right down the road, rather than just a text here, text there, and this and that. So that's like, yeah, go for it. Yep. So I was actually just looking into the one that they recommended in that in the mastermind group on Monday. But feel free to get it. It's called. I just had it. I feel like I need to find it. I'm gonna send this a link. It's like not here. Yeah. Oh, it's called YLopo. Yeah, like the letter Y, LOPO.com. Yeah, and that's gonna be an app. I don't think that one's free, so I'm trying to figure out if we're gonna just use it and get it for the team. But that's gonna help you, because that'll then like directly drop it into the CRM and stuff. But to answer your question in short, like, I don't like overcomplicating things to like make my life like more difficult. Because the truth is, like, we've got, we're now officially in like Zabat group. We have 2 TCs more or less right now at this point. So leverage them. Like, what I'm trying to do is like get it to where like none of the agents are doing anything administrative ever. So like, I would just do the pen and paper, because you can walk around at the clipboard, and I'm like way more efficient with handwriting rather than like clicking a little box and like filling in their information. Yeah. And then it's something like tangible, because then like I can look back through my open house book and then look at my people that have signed in and like figure out where I'm at with it. And like I can like walk around and just write down notes, rather than like follow them around on my phone and look like I'm texting. It looks, I think in my opinion, it looks more professional when you're face to face, because they don't know what you're doing on your phone, or iPad. They don't think you're working, right? Like if you're following around, like they're just going to think you're texting behind them. And not paying attention. So I do pen and paper. We have open house sign-in books at the office. So feel free to grab one of those. And then back to like administrative tasks. Something I want to add to the TC's plate down the road is at the open house, just take pictures of your open house sign-ins. And then we should be able to, in theory, just send them all to our TC to get them to add them into KV Core. And KV Core is our CRM. So, and that's where that's going to be like the holy grail of like everybody's information. And the reason for that is we want to make sure it's tracked. Because like if you're sitting open houses every week and you only have, 4 people a month being put into the CRM, now we know you need help with either A, getting people to show up to the open house, or B, you need help getting people to sign in because you're not following the structure on it. So that's the reason that's like really, really important for your own growth. Because then because you can't track any numbers if we don't keep track of it, right? Like if you're like, yeah, I think I had like maybe like 4 to 6 groups come through today. It's like you need to be tracking all the stuff. Like you're spending your time there. We need to understand like what your dollar income per hour is that you're sitting open houses. Like, are you making any money doing it? Like, what do you need help with? And that's all stuff like we're here to help you with. So we want to make sure, like, if you're saying, I have 10 people coming through, but I have 4 sign-ins, then like you need help getting people to sign in, right? And then too, like that helps you keep track to keep yourself accountable, like for your own leads, because remember, those are your own leads that come through open houses. So if you get 5 people a week, that's 20 people a month you have to potentially be calling. Like, that stuff will keep you busy really, really quickly. And 20 videos a month to send out, right? If you follow up with them all weekly, which maybe I would do my face. Like, that's what people want to see. Like, and then that's how they're going to be like to remember you. Yeah. So that way, and then same thing, like, yeah. So I would just do my face, like, particularly the first one. Absolutely do your video and absolutely show your face at the open house you met them at. Like, that's why it's really important to do it that same day. Like, hey, this is Terrell, we just met at this property on 65th Place. I just wanted to take the time to send you guys a video. Like, thanks so much. I'm looking forward to speaking with you in the future. And again, make the video to like however the conversation went with them, right? Because you might have gone down the road of like telling them about like how we find some off-market properties. You might have gone down the road of like talking about them, like about selling their place potentially. You might have talked to them about refinancing. You might have talked to them about Airbnb, this, that, the third, right? Like, so that would be how your video is constructed, to tell them kind of like what the next steps are and like what they can expect from you. It's not like, hey, thanks so much for stopping by. It's such a pleasure to meet you. Like, if you don't have any conversation with somebody and you have their number, then yeah, I guess send them that. But you want to have like a point, right? And same thing with the follow-up. Like, I never follow up and be like, hey, how are you doing? Like, just checking in, seeing how it's going, right? It's like, no, we're not just checking in. Like, we want to have structure for them. Like, how are we helping them come to this decision, right? So that's why like the initial conversation is so important with people, because then you're gonna have a much better like game plan on your follow-up. So yeah, I think that would be like, that's definitely the best way to do it. Another like step I'd add to like the open house, as far as getting their information, I would never, on the initial sign in, ask them their name. So I'm always asking their name, their phone number, their email. That's it on the initial sign in. The rest of the information you can gather later. So because the rest of the stuff's like, go ahead. Yeah, we have them. So and if we don't, we can get more, but I'm pretty sure like last I looked before we moved, I know we had like 10 of them sitting in the closet. So, and they're just like, they have a bunch of questions in the sign-in book. I don't ask them all the questions. Like, they ask like, are you pre-qualified? Are you working with the lender? Like, do you have an agent? I don't ask them any of that stuff. So, like, unless the conversation like goes that route, or if they like mention they have an agent or something like that. But I would just do that. And then like the last step to me, I would then obviously like kind of ask them basically what, more or less somewhere along the lines of like why they're stopping by, right? Like, what brought you in? Like, what are you guys looking for, right? And then they open up and they'll start to tell you what they're talking about. And then the last part of the sign-in I always try to get is their address. And the reason for that, I would say, hey, I've got a really cool tool that I give to all the people that are coming through these open houses. It's a one-time monthly email that comes through. It gives you all the information about your property. It tells you, how much your home's worth potentially, right? Obviously, we can do some refining, but it's a pretty accurate tool as far as knowing generally what your home's value is. And then it also breaks down to you like what current mortgage rates are and like what your payment would be if you were to refinance. And then it also breaks down like nightly Airbnb rentals, long-term lease rentals, and everything. So that way, they could have an actual thing to click from you every month that's going to fill them in about their property, whether you've seen their house or not. And that's a really good value add and a really good automated follow-up tool. that'll be going out to them, but it's gonna require that you have their accurate email and home's address to give them that value. But no one's gonna give you their accurate address when you're stopping them at the front door. I'm like, who are you? Name, phone number, email. Like, sure, I think that's pretty standard to give out. But when you're asking for their address, and like, even though the reality is like, if they give you their real name, we can look up their address. But yeah, I think that's like borderline creepy if you just find their address from their name and then like start emailing them stuff. But like definitely a good tactic too. Like I wouldn't say to not do that. But I wouldn't do it if they specifically didn't give you their address. You know what I mean? But that tool is called HomeBot. So I can get you hooked up with our lenders to get you all signed up for HomeBot. HomeBot's free up to like 50 people. Once you have 50 people in there, you pay annually. It's not very much. I think it's like $50 for the year or something. But yeah, and that's tools like, yeah, it's called HomeBot. Yep. And I'm going to send you the lender's information now. That's on that can get you all set up. And then the reason the lender's on it is because it talks about loans. So it talks about refinancing and all that stuff too. So then the lender, obviously if they're going to do a refinance or something, the lender's going to take that side of the business. But if they're looking to buy or sell, then you're obviously the guy. So it's branded to both parties. But yeah, that's probably like the last step of the open house, I'd say, is like finalizing that sign-in sheet, right, with notes, what they're looking for. I'm never asking them if they like the house or like, what do you think? Right? Like I just kind of jump to the point, like kind of more or less, is the reality is like most people aren't going to buy that house. They're at the open house. So I just asked them straight up, what are you looking for? Like, how can I help you? Like, just get right to the point. Yeah, and I mean, like, no one's, and that's the funny thing about that question is like, no one's gonna share with you like what they think. They're not gonna be like, I mean, and some people will, I guess. I've heard that. Some people are like, well, it's a piece of junk. Like there's, scuffs on the walls and they should really clean their kitchen. And, some people like really tell you, and that's what I mean. Like, I don't want that answer. I basically want to know, like, why are you here? Right. So like I have a better like approach, and it's not as vague as how can I help you? Right. It's like, what are you guys shopping for? Right. Like, and then it's like, it's probably a house, or they can be like, oh, we just live down the street. Like, and that's going to be the part where they fill you in on kind of what they're actually shopping for and like how you can actually help them. And then you have the opportunity to pitch yourself, right? And not necessarily like you should use me because, you can just use, I just use knowledge to, help them convert and get on board or, want to hear from me in the future. Right. And that's really low hanging fruit that comes through open houses like all the time. So I'd say that's probably the best way to sit these. And then go for it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're happy to sit them with you. Either myself or Zaybak or, any of the other people on the team. Like I know, Lily and Summer have been sitting them together. It's just it's better. I mean, the lender, I just sent you his information. He can sit him with you too. It's good to have a lender there too, because they can help get the conversation started with like the loans and stuff too. Because some people might be just interested in doing a refinance, or they may be refinancing to pull out cash in order to buy another property. And it just looks really, really good when the lender's there, like ready to jump on board and like help them out. Like, I've seen my lender get loans and open houses with me standing right there. We both get the client, and then people like see you guys as like a team, right? And they'll be like, oh, and I've got clients and referrals from clients with the lender sitting open houses with me, and we can tag team a conversation, right? So that way you just let him carry what his knowledge is or her knowledge is on the loan side of things, and then you carry the knowledge on the real estate side. So having multiple people at the open house is a really good way to do them. His name's Mac. He's with Fairway Mortgage. So yeah, that's one of the lenders I use consistently. Yeah, he's solid. Yeah, I think that's basically like kind of in a nutshell, right? We'll cover your open houses. So just let me know what you need. I mean, I'm thinking you're probably going to need an open house key to get into majority of these. Certainly there is some that like, maybe the agent will let you into or something, or you could borrow Todd's key. But I'd probably just, and this time of the year, it's kind of hit or miss. Like I'd say like really like this weekend would be a good weekend to sit one. Maybe next weekend, but then it just gets kind of funky, so like January, like you're saying, it's probably not a bad time, but and especially if these homes are occupied. And don't let a home that's occupied steer you away from calling and seeing if they want an open house. Because that's like in the MLS, people put that the home's occupied all the time when it's not, just to make sure people schedule appointments to see it. So don't like read that it's occupied and then like don't even call. Or, the seller might be out of town for a month, right? Like, and there could be a great opportunity to sit open houses there.